while we're waiting, go ahead and turn off anything that would beep, like cell phones.
I had completed my major task for going to the moon and was on the way home and was observing the heavens and the earth from this distance, observing the passing of the heavens as we were rotating. I saw the earth, the sun, the moon, and a 360-degree panorama of the heavens. The magnificence of all of this, what this triggered in my visioning in the ancient Sanskrit is called samadhi. It means that you see things with your senses the way they are, but you experience them viscerally and internally as a unity and a oneness, accompanied by ecstasy. All matter in our universe is created in star systems. And so the matter in my body and the matter in the spacecraft and the matter in my partner's bodies was the product of stars. We are stardust. And we're all one in that sense.
I am such a devotee of Edgar Mitchell's work. What happened when he was up in space, he talked about how he had the window seat, the best window seat, and a lot of his work had already been done, because he did a lot of his technical work while he was on the moon. So he had the opportunity to have some downtime while they were coming back to Earth. And can you just imagine, he had that window. And by the way, if you go to the the Museum of Science and Industry, you can see the capsule he came down in. You can see his seat. But he had what he called a noetic moment that he just described, a samadhi, where he was able to have a interior, visceral experience that changed him forever. And by the time they splashed down on Earth, he had dedicated himself to doing whatever he could to bring together every iota of scientific knowledge of any kind of science, spirituality, whatever it would take to propagate peace and the reality of unity. And he really was, to me, and has been to me, such an inspiration, because to me, he really embodies the idea of the point we are at now as a humanity, of being the intersection of science and spirituality. So much of what the ancients told us, the idea that God is an infinite sphere whose circumference is nowhere, whose center is everywhere. All of these things that were said down through millennia are being validated at this particular time, this particular century, amongst science. And what's trying to happen now is science and religion are trying to keep up with each other and trying to partner rather than seem separate and apart. And that's the talk we want to give today. The talk we titled on Thursday morning when we realized we were going to be spending some time getting ready to speak in the pulpit. We said, well, what the heck, let's call our talk The Power of Uncertainty. So I wanted to tell you, go ahead and put the next slide up. Is that the one? Oh, no, that's not the one. Oh, okay, that is? Okay. There's some uncertainty right up here. We are doing a twofer, and we have like a list of slides, and this was really a challenge trying to fit everything in. So strap in, like I said earlier, and just hang in there and, give us a little love here. Anyway, if you talk about uncertainty, there are astronauts right now that you may be aware of named Sunny Williams and Butch Wilmore. Anybody heard of these two? They went for like the 3 hour ride, like from back in June last year, and they're still on a space shuttle waiting to come home. And what's really fascinating about that is their energy is so wonderful. They just talk about how it is, it was some technological problems and some scheduling issues, believe it or not, because they have to shuttle people back and forth, fill in people to get up to the space station. They were fine with it. There was a little spin recently saying, well, did you two feel abandoned because we haven't brought you down? And they're like, no, we don't feel abandoned. In fact, we love it up here. One of them, Sunny Williams, the woman, said, it really is difficult for me to imagine people on Earth not getting along together. She said, it just changes your perspective up here. And one of the astronauts, Frank White, observed, and in talking to his fellow astronauts, began to realize that they all had something in common. They called it the overview effect of being up there in space, seeing that little blue dime, seeing that all the drama, all the angst, all the resentments, all the wars, all the cacophony, all of the emotions, all that we deal with on a daily basis, we're on that one little blue dime in the midst of the vastness of a never-ending universe. And what they also got from that was a sense of unity, the pure sense of unity. These two astronauts have just taken this setback in stride. Talk about uncertainty. They have taken this back. They have all the food they need. They hang out together. They love each other. They got other people there. And like one of them said, this is my happy place. I love being up here in space. Certainly they would, if they didn't know how they were going to get home at some point, there might be some angst and uncertainty. But right now, they have enough variables that they can count on that they're willing to be in the not know and really being the power of the present time. So again, here we are, talking about certainty. You all walked in the door today thinking Reverend Kitty would be standing here, I'm presuming. A few of you might have known not. And here we are, uncertain why we're here. But, we sat there when we got the call, we got the idea that we needed to be here to fill in, for our beloved Reverend Kitty. Hi, Reverend Kitty, we know you're feeling really good, and every iota, every cell is sizzling with health, vibration, and we're all sending you, we're like love juju, woo, to get you up on your feet and back to us. But in the meantime, we really thought what we'd do is we would take you guys along with us a little bit on some of what we have been going through, Michael and I, in our growth in our ministry. And Michael just retired a year ago, uncertain what he was going to do with that. We call it refiring. And boy, have we refired, because he hasn't really had much downtime. But what it was really allowing him to do was step away from a corporate venue and get back into his heart, his ministry, his spiritual studies. And what we've been working on is a program for over a year and a half called Advanced Consciousness Studies, which is a parallel between science and spirituality from the perspective of quantum theory, which sounds like a big woo-woo, and it is. It's so crazy. But there's some things about it that are really so practically applicable, and they're showing up well in our lives, and we thought we'd bring them to you. Because here's the thing we want to talk about. How many of you like to be certain? Come on, get the hands up. Oh, give me a break. Okay, how many are you lying? No. And are you certain you are? But how many of us want to be certain, right? We want to know. We want to be certain. We want to know. We want things kind of be in place, all that kind of thing. What do you feel when you hear the word uncertain? Being uncertain about maybe relationships, being uncertain about the next step in our creative expression or our career, the uncertainty of our finances, the uncertainty of our well-being, our health, mind, body, spirit, the uncertainty of the world around us, the uncertainty of what's going on in our own country right now. Whether we're delighted or we're otherwise, there is a lot of uncertainty going on. Can I have an amen on that? So what we wanted to do today is talk to you because what we have discovered that in the realm of the quantum, certainty is not a liability. I mean, uncertainty is not a liability. Uncertainty is a value. And when we began to get some of that, we went, whoa. Michael and I have really kind of moved from thinking of ourselves as ministers and the doctor thing and all that to we are two people who claim we are quantum activists. And we want to talk to you about what that means. So I want to start off by reading to you directly from a book that we are just adoring. This is one of our textbooks. It's about quantum physics and what to do with it. And it's written by somebody named Mel Schwartz. It's called The Possibility Principle, How Quantum Physics Can Improve the Way You Think, Live, and Love. Is that something you'd like to know about? Yeah, me too. So I'm going to read you what he wrote at the very beginning of the book. And it's a great book, by the way. And I also have to get my readers. Hold this. Okay, Mel wrote this at the beginning of the book. This is that like hook in the mouth. I wakened one Wednesday morning some 20 years ago feeling really anxious. He had been recently divorced. He was missing his kids. They were with their mom that weekend, and so he decided he'd kind of go out, take a bike ride, and do that whole thing. And as he pedaled around, his angst only continued to get worse. He realized he was feeling a state of anxiety, actually feeling almost like an anxiety attack. I don't know, some of you, I've had one of those. I don't know if you have. Something had never happened to him before. And still feeling shaken and alone, he arrived home and he wrote, I walked into my office and absently pulled a book off the shelf, The Turning Point, Science, Society, and the Rising Culture, written by theoretical quantum physicist Fritjof Capra, which he'd bought some time ago, but he'd never gotten around to reading. I've got about 2,000 of those. Now I opened it and began to read about a major worldview shift catalyzed by quantum physics, also known as quantum mechanics, which was just beginning to herald a deep impact on many aspects of our society. Capra described how this quantum sense of reality departed radically from our beliefs rooted in the once groundbreaking work of the 17th century thinkers named Isaac Newton and René Descartes. I felt myself becoming enthralled as I read of a wondrous universe and one that inseparably was whole and thoroughly interpenetrating, in which all notions of separation faded away. Moreover, this new reality indicated that the universe existed in a state of uncertainty, Tash, a state of pure potentiality. As I continued to read, I was astonished to notice that my anxiety and despair had been replaced by a sense of serenity and connection. Although nothing at all had changed in my outer world, my inner world was undergoing a profound shift. I was becoming a participant in this magical wholeness that I was reading about. I no longer felt alone, but sensed that I was an integral part of this universe. I felt calm and connected. Capra's vision had opened me to the immense potential to be derived from connectedness. So, we're going to talk to you about what we can learn from this material. We're not going to read you the whole book, but I recommend it's a really good book. But what we want to do is we want to share with you some of what we are taking away and what we're able to embody into our daily world, how we're bringing the quantum consciousness into our experience and being able to see the contrast of it between what's going on now in the 20th century, science and spirituality, compared to what we have lived with since the 17th century that came all the way into the 21st century, which is easily known as Newtonian physics. So it's about a worldview, and we all have one. A worldview is the meta picture of how we think reality works. Yeah, we got that. Ooh, that worked out good. Thank you. What we need to understand is that it's merely a temporary snapshot of reality. Michael?
Slide, please. Good morning, everyone. Sure we got the right one up here. We do.
Yep, you do.
So we're not going to take too deep a dive into this because it might blow our heads off and we wouldn't have enough time anyways, but just to give you an idea here, in quantum physics, objects are not determined things. Talking about quantum physics versus Newtonian physics, which most of us grew up with and such. But in quantum physics, objects are not determined things. They are possibilities from which consciousness must choose. Our consciousness must choose. They're possibilities, infinite possibilities. Actually, we say those infinite possibilities exist as waves of possibilities. And then when we choose, they become particles. Okay? The participatory, or it's actually the quantum worldview, is a new vision of reality based on the discoveries of quantum physics. And it's a revelation that reality appears to be a kind of creative dance in which we all participate. And it's more of a reality-making process than just a fixed objective reality. You see a difference? It's a reality-making process versus fixed reality. Everything is always changing. It's like when Mary Beth talked a moment ago about a worldview. It's a meta picture of how we think reality operates. And that changes. So this is a different worldview around it. The new reality indicates that the universe exists in a state of uncertainty, pure potentiality. Uncertainty means when you have infinite possibilities, nothing is certain, am I right? And is that a good thing? Well, sometimes, it is, and sometimes it doesn't feel like such a good thing. But it does mean that you and I get to participate. I didn't say we choose to participate, which is true, but we get to participate, and we'll always participate. Why? Because as we talk about a new thought, our thoughts and beliefs are creating our experience of life. Have you heard that before? What I think about, I bring about. And since what I'm thinking about, I'm bringing about, I'm always thinking. How about you? Are you always thinking? What do they say, 50,000 thoughts a day or something like that? I still want to know who counted those, by the way. I've never heard that. I've heard that for years.
I did it.
Mary Beth said she counted one time. And,
I did, yeah. Good day.
Cindy, next slide, please.
I already did.
Oh, you did? Okay, there we go. Thank you. Okay, so the observer effect is a key part of quantum theory. Okay, the observer effect says that the observer influences the results of what is being observed. Thus, we're not just separate from what's being observed. That's a quote from Mel Schwartz. If we are not separate from what we are looking at, we must be open to consideration that our consciousness, informed by our beliefs, thoughts, and feelings, impacts and therefore alters what we are observing. And that's a key tenet of quantum physics. And they've done that in laboratories in various tests scientifically, showing that these so-called waves that become particles when they're observed, and it changes the results. So, and the same thing is true in our everyday thoughts and beliefs about life. What we're observing, what we're thinking about, what we're paying attention to and putting our directive thinking on is literally creating out of these waves of infinite possibilities. So do you think that opens us up to amazing possibilities as opposed to just feeling sort of stuck?
And actually, described is the third principle in unity. What thoughts held in mind, what
Thoughts held in mind create after their kind. That's right.
So that's when the wave becomes a particle, and the thought held in mind brings it into visible reality with mathematical accuracy. As long as we don't abort and say, oh, I can't do that. Goes back to being a wave.
And we haven't blown anyone's mind out yet, right? So far, so good. Okay. Can we go to the next slide, Cindy? Now, this, you might think, since my birthday, this was a picture of me when I actually had, when I had hair. And it was past my shoulders in college, but I did, I did dress better than that, though, so I'd like to say that. So Isaac Newton, and this is around the 17th century, and Mary Beth mentioned earlier, Descartes and Newton were a big piece of our, up to this current day thinking. Newtonian physics, we've heard that word before. Newtonian physics, that's what we've lived with, versus quantum physics that we just talked about. And Newton depicted the universe as a giant machine, a worldview known as the mechanistic paradigm. Easy for me to say, mechanistic paradigm, but it was a giant machine. So a couple of ideas I just want to share with you about this is that the Newtonian model of the world says the world consists of separate and inert objects that are disconnected from one another, interacting only through cause and effect. So they're disconnected objects. That's the worldview around it. Everything around it is disconnected, but cause and effect brings them together. They interact. And according to this picture of reality, the world operates as a giant machine. That's where that word mechanistic came from. And we become the cogs of that machine. Anyone want to be a cog in a machine? I don't. But we become cogs in the machine, detached from one another and disconnected from the universe at large, which my observation is that I've certainly felt that way at times, and I think a lot of this world feels disconnected. Separation being the essence of the Newtonian worldview, this image is devoid of any sense of relatedness, leaving us as strangers in a cold, austere world, absent any scintilla of belonging or purpose. And he goes on to say that another major tenet of this Newtonian physics is known as determinism, the ability to predict future conditions based on present circumstances. That means that if I look at the world around me as it sits right now, and you could take any area, relationships, your body, your health, politics in the world, if we look at things at present time, we go out, it's our natural tendency to go out and start predicting how things are going to be. Oh, ain't it awful? You know, the sky is going to fall. Or, my life is beautiful. Everything's unfolding perfectly in my life. That's what I've been saying of late. My life is unfolding perfectly. But again, looking at conditions around us, we can easily be led to say, you know, Debbie Downer. Did anyone see the NBC Saturday Night Live special? Womp womp. I'm not auditioning for the part, believe me. Determinism, okay, in other words, Newtonian worldview, strips us of our sense of wonder and creativity. It drives us to seek certainty as we avoid the uncertain. It's what we talked about earlier. How comfortable does it feel to you to be uncertain? I want to be certain most of the time, but yet I crave the uncertain. I crave to be in that space. So let's talk about the differences in those two worldviews. And this is important because we recognize that as we move more and more, and you're already doing this because you're sitting here today, you're interested in new thought, as we call it, new thought, ancient wisdom, metaphysics. But as we move more and more into this and try to move away from this, here's some big differences. Newtonian worldview promotes extreme individualization.
The quantum view would be promoting common good because it's a unity.
Newtonian isolates us and induces us to compete
Because it sees us as separate. Quantum physics supports unity and collaboration and also recognizes that things that come into our world are there by rite of passage, rite of consciousness, not that somebody else's work but our work.
Newtonian promotes the importance of winning, and you can see a lot of this in our world today, right?
Quantum physics encourages compassion, again, because there's unity here, You know, there's an old proverb that says something to the effect that no tree would ever contemplate having disease or discord with its branches.
Newtonian promotes conflict.
Quantum physics lays a foundation for cooperation.
Newtonian encourages us to seek certainty.
Quantum physics embraces the uncertain, because if we can be realizing that we're working with infinite potentiality and possibility, that anything is possible and even greater than that. And one of the things I love about that idea is that if it's an infinite universe, then there can be no problem without a solution. So the only way we can have a problem that perpetuates in the quantum is by paying attention to having a problem and giving that message over to source that that's what we believe in.
We always say in this realm of infinite possibilities that the solution to any problem already exists at the same time as the very question exists, or the so-called problem. Newtonian strips us of our sense of wonder and creativity.
Quantum encourages creativity and curiosity. You know, one of the things we say in New Thought is principle, or the supreme overarching principle of life is never bound by precedent. That's a quantum concept. A Newtonian concept is precedent overrides possibility. Okay, oh, that's me. Okay, it's me. Something more now. Okay, now I want to talk to you about how quantum, the uncertainty, the quantum uncertainty can come into your life. Let's have another slide here too. So the primary principles, there's like 3 primary principles that we studied in this book, the possibility principle. And one of them is that the universe is inseparably whole and thoroughly interpenetrating. All notions of separation fade away. Just imagine that. And this is, you know, this whole idea of the astronauts being up there and having that observer, or the observer effect. We don't have to go up in space to have that. We only have to go into the space of our minds and begin to just imagine the waves. Just visualize waves, infinite waves everywhere, all around us, going on forever. There is no end. Infinity has no end. There is nothing outside of infinity. Just like God, there can only be one power and one presence. If there could be another one or an end to it, it would be finite. So the very idea of the waves of possibility in quantum validate our belief in a powerful divinity that serves us. And that we are made in the image and likeness of that one, and that we have choice and initiative. So we can choose to think in any way we choose to think. And the key to this whole thing is the way we choose to think is what takes a wave, and that fervent thought collapses the wave in some way we can't see. And it begins now, it is a particle, and a particle begins to attract to itself through vibration all that it needs to move from invisibility into visibility, mathematically accurate. Unless we let it go, and then it goes back to being a wave that's impartial. Isn't that amazing? So the idea, right, I mean, it's okay. You can clap. This is exciting stuff. That's why we wanted to try to talk to you about it. Because if this is the case, and you hear the word, I'm uncertain, that's a beautiful commodity. Because that means we don't have an attachment to the answer right now. But if it's an infinite mind, it's in there. You know, now it was Einstein, right, that said that you cannot solve a problem, what? At the level of the problem, in the mind that had the problem. But when we realize that there's a higher mind that we are one with, you know, just think of that as like the GOD, gives on demand, internet. We sit in our lives and we hit enter, I want to know about, and we go. And who knows, like on the computer, who knows where our command goes out there when we're working with an internet? We just know that we get an answer back at our local address, right? And you know, if it's not the answer we wanted, guess what we do? We refine our search. Well, that's what life's all about. But this idea, I don't know if it gives you God bumps, but when you start considering the potentiality and the possibility of how exciting it can be to be uncertain. You know, it's really the Newtonian way we grew up on was, well, you know, I'll believe it when I see it. How many of you grew up on I believe it when I see it? How about I'll see it when I believe it? And who told us that? Life is done unto us as we believe. The master teacher reminded us of this. He also gave us a wonderful quote. He said many things. He was really, you know, he was a quantum activist. He just didn't know it. But he said, and do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So, okay, we need another slide. So Mel wrote in his book, the time has come for each of us to experience and live from a personal revolution. You thinking it might be time for you to come into a little bit of a personal revolution here? Kind of takes us up in our bootstraps. We kind of step up, and it's like we've been doing this thing with unity. We've been doing this stuff with our spiritual practice. We've been coming together in community. We've been there for each other. We've been compassionate. We've been loving. We've been all these things. And there's more. There's more. There's ability for us to recognize our true value, our true divinity in the face of an internal revolution, just as the scientific world did 9 decades ago when they discovered quantum physics, and they went, oh my God. And one of the scientists said, I don't even want to know about this, you know, just because it's so radical. So it's come to the time that let us let go of a long, outdated worldview, the Newtonian worldview, that there's this separation between us, that there is competitiveness, that there is finiteness, and that there is an idea that things aren't come to us because we have to get them, not because they're theirs by right of consciousness, and that there's enough for all, there's an infinite amount for all. It's time for us to let go of that outdated worldview. And it's time for each of us to experience new possibilities, possibilities we can apprehend when we let go of the old outlook that keeps us stuck in so many ways in our lives. You know, and here's the thing. We don't have to be like we know that we're not scared. It's okay to be scared. I read this motivational speaker, Paul Boynton, said, as we step into the unknown, we discover we can be fragile and strong and terrified and brave all at the same time. Okay? So, oh yeah, and we got a slide that says, a wonderful quote in the end of our lesson today before our meditation, and this came from Brother David Steindl-Rast, which is, another name for God is surprise. Beautiful. So let me share with you a wonderful reading from another fabulous book that will just change your life if you don't have it, called The Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo. How many of you are Nepoians? Some of you? It's a wonderful book of days, and this entry is called The Gift of Surprise. While rushing to complete your dearest plans that you could tell no one, you can bump into another and groceries will fly. And while picking up the ketchup, you might fall in love. Or in your second year of college while studying what mommy and daddy wanted you to be, you can accidentally open a book on Albert Schweitzer and discover that you feel compelled to go to Africa. Or understanding geometry, you might decide to become a gardener, finding endless joy in creating landscapes. Or the death of your grandmother might open a side of you that is starving for history. Or in my case, losing a rib to cancer made me discover the Adam in me. It seems that any moment of interest or pain or adversity can surprise us into the largest totality of life, breaking our current limits and allowing us the chance to redefine ourselves in regard to the larger sense that is upon us. That we are opened so suddenly, so often, is the way the soul unfolds on earth. We can never be prepared for everything. No one person can anticipate all of life. In fact, over-preparation is yet another way to wall ourselves in from life. Rather, we can only prepare for how we might respond to the gift of surprise that often moves in on us faster than our reflexes can resist. Life is surprising, thank God, and God, the chance to know oneness, lives in surprise. For God is seldom in our plans, but is always in the unexpected.
I invite you to join me in a brief meditation. Trying to do? Mary Beth. Let's just take a nice deep breath, breathing in and holding it for a moment. Slowly releasing. I accept and know right now that today, one power, this one intelligence, really moves through me and has created me in its own likeness and image. Truly expressing itself in wonderful ways through all that I am, all that I do. I am spirit in expression. I am a unique, individualized expression of this quantum field, another name for God. And today, I know that as a unique individualization of this intelligence, I am truly open to uncertainty. I am open to surprise. I'm open to let any one of these infinite possibilities, waves of quantum possibility, collapse into my life, fulfilling my greatest desires. And even though I may not know how, and even though I may be feeling uncomfortable at times, the uncertainty that surrounds me in life, I look at that uncertainty and know that truly it is a gift. It is a gift that is giving something wonderful to me. As long as I let go of my need to resist it. And instead, I embrace it. I embrace it knowing that by moving through this uncertainty with a sense of faith, confidence, knowing that this universal intelligence is providing for my very good in this now moment. I'm willing to let this feeling of uncertainty sit with me. I'm willing to be present. And I'm willing to know that I need not be certain of every single thing in my life. Because in so doing, I accept that I am set free. I am set free right now to let greater opportunities move into my life, greater possibilities to unfold, and magnificent good show up in ways that I may have not even expected. And for this, I say thank you, Spirit. Thank you, God. I release this word right now in the knowingness and acceptance that this truly is complete and unfolding perfectly, right here and right now. I let it be so by saying, so it is.